still streaming things. Define the stream. So here's the YouTube link in my account. This unique key that you make in the stream. And then you just use it from there. Hi, welcome to my sec. We are waiting for our speaker to come back here, so we'll be starting momentarily. If you're on IRC, let me know if you have any issues with the audio or the stream itself. That'll be awesome. Thanks.
Hey, feel free to sit down. There's a lot of chairs up front, and I'm sure Eagle Beach would love to have you sit up front. Yes, get rid of what?
Come on, I'll go sit. Yeah.
Stream is live.
Yeah, except that his is. What's up? We're on stage together. Woo, look at that.
I gotta get.
Fun times. Kyle, I figured out how to launch a PowerShell script through C#. So you can actually hide the PowerShell script in the C# and then run it through an obfuscator so you can actually tell what's running as it's an exit.
Found my missing dongle. Where's that stuff? No, I got one.
He's got a really cool one actually.
Professional presentation.
I have a $30 one and I'm fine with it.
Keith bought me one with this budget.
Oh yeah? Did you know that we're getting Skype for Business? I haven't downloaded the update yet for it.
All right, where do I need to plug in here?
You need your.
You need VGA or
I mean, shoot.
there's also VGA.
Is there DVI? I got HD on mine.
I thought there was. Remember the time on the liar? Such a liar.
This thing?
Oh, there it is. I can't see.
You guys got it?
Maybe.
HDMI.
This is HDMI.
And then from there. Da, 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 da. Oh, wait. Wait, please.
There you go. Yep.
Which? Do you want your desktop background on the internet?
No, you don't have to. I mean, I can do the share. You know what I mean? Let me make sure we got both these presentations.
So I'm not recording the full video yet, but the stream is live right now.
Okay. I think I'm gonna start up the PowerShell user group again.
Do it.
But online only for a little while.
Okay. Well, that'll be easier.
And then find a spot eventually. Because I may have to drive to Royal Oak to do it.
That'd be so far. Oh, but that's it. Yeah.
You and I get in the car after work one day and just go. Duh.
Do that.
All right. You're getting a house. You're not becoming dead.
No, I'm getting in debt. I'm gonna cry and have no money.
Oh, welcome to adulthood.
That's still.
Nope.
Nope. Why didn't you do it there? Huh?
It's over there. See? You have to go to slideshow.
I get 10 minutes away on the audio. Listen to the conversation.
I do. And then put show on right there. The second drop down. Not that one. Two.
I'm never going
And now
into
hit
upper
F5.
management.
Okay, so I better do mine then too, or will it do that for the both presets?
You'll have to do it when you launch the preset, I believe. But then you're going to also want to scoot your slide deck over there. By the way.
Oh, it's not there yet. That's right.
Yeah, so you'll have to slide
Go ahead,
this.
do your intro.
Hold on. You need to. Where's your mouse? See? So, if you leave the Prezo on here and set it to the other monitor,
Yeah.
the slide will be here and those will be up there.
Okay.
So you can go through. Cool.
I think I'm good.
I'll figure it out.
After you do intro, if you can just start my deck, then I'll.
Yeah. All right. And the cloud goes silent. I always hate that when you give a talk and the crowd is silent right beforehand.
You got last year's presentation.
Yeah? Oh, yeah. Whatever. Welcome to MySec Jackson in April 2015. I used last year's deck. We're going to go over introduction, what MySec is really quick, announcements, and then Jim Beachy will be presenting this evening. So first of all, what is MySec? MySec's a community group, free to attend, free to share your information, have fun, do a lot of things like we go to conferences together, we have meetups together, we do various social events. We've been go-karting to, I'm not, oh, dude. Do a whole bunch of stuff. But anyways, you'll find a big community. This is not the only one. There's one in Royal Oak that has probably 80-some people that attend on a regular basis. So you'll, this is part of a larger thing. So some announcements, which I can't spell announcements either. Hey. I didn't install spell check. Anyways, so DLE Sec is a group by Jason Brown and Stephen Legg, and they started a nonprofit, or I don't know if it's incorporated yet, but it's a group that they're going to help people learn CTF skills. So at a lot of HackerCons, you do CTF events, and they actually have something set up so that you can go in and do this. And they'll be at Converge, and they'll be at Circle City Con, but they're running their first event on April 25th. Mishsec.org has the details, and I think it's $20, but they'll get you going if you've never played into CTF into actually participating one by the end of the day. So that's really cool. One of the other things that we have coming up is Converge and B-Sides Detroit. I'm one of the organizers. A bunch of people help out with this. It is July 16th and 17th for Converge. That is a paid conference. And then on July 18th is B-Sides Detroit, which is the 5th year for B-Sides Detroit. You can still submit to the CFP, so I'm hoping that if you got some content or are borderline on what you want to share, you can go ahead and throw something in there. You can get tickets to both B-Sides Detroit and Converge. Converge tickets get you to B-Side Detroit automatically. If you want to volunteer, so help moderate a room, tell people where to go, do various things, you're going to want to talk to Kyle down here at the front. He is the volunteer coordinator this year. That actually nets you a free ticket to Converge. if you volunteer for Converge. So if you want to go, we are announcing our keynotes this week. We have three really good keynotes lined up. We're working on a fourth really quick to get going. So watch out for that. I know there's a lot of presentations that are really good that are set to coming up. So next month, Chris, who normally runs the video streaming equipment, I'm not going to butcher his name because I can't spell check. I'm not going to try that. He is going to speak on a topic called Clear as Bud. The abstract will be up on the MySec website by the end of the week. And next is Jim Beachies.
Thanks, Matt, for that picture and introduction. All right, appreciate it. So this is a talk I haven't done before, kind of testing it out on you, so I definitely appreciate feedback, suggestions, thoughts. It's something I'm thinking about maybe doing for B-Sides or other groups, so please welcome the open dialogue, and you can stop me anytime and ask questions. This is not a technical talk, I'm sorry. I'm bringing the management layer into the room, but the point of this, I think, is what I'm trying to do is help people communicate maybe in a different way and get to a deeper understanding of maybe how they can have a better impact on their security posture by communicating differently and using those skills at work or wherever else you may use them. They might work in marriages and other things as well. So, genius is the ability to put in effect what is on your mind. And I was kind of looking for a quote, and this was, I thought, perfect because, when I talk about, let me go back. When I talk about this talk, what I think about is how many people we have in InfoSec that are frankly brilliant, but struggle maybe a little bit in the communication side. So that's really the sort of the nexus of what we'll talk about. This is me. I know just about everybody in the room, but I would like to know everyone. So if we haven't met before, especially a few of you folks that I don't recognize, definitely want to. Here's the proverbial bio. While we are at Consumers Energy and I work for Consumers Energy, this is not a Consumers Energy talk. I have to say that just to protect my own hiney as usual, but happy to talk about these other things if needed. Okay, so let's get into the talk. I mentioned this before, but I feel like InfoSec is filled with these brilliant people. We've got all these great ideas. We got tons of tools. But when you go to a con, everybody's frustrated. Right? Everybody talks about how terrible things are, how their security posture sucks, how they can't get management to do anything, how people are a bunch of idiots, right? I mean, you hear these things repeatedly, this frustration. And, when you look at all the breaches we've had, the big ones, it's kind of hat tip to Keith. His big push is most of them, they lacked fundamentals. They lacked the basic things that you need to do in a security program to protect yourself to some extent. You can't protect yourself completely. But so kind of all these things, thinking about them, drove me to try to do this talk. And my view is that if you improve your communication skills, you can have a significant impact on your organization's security posture. And those two things don't always go hand in hand with security people. We think a lot of technical things, and those are important, but I think communications can really drive success. And I feel like for us, where we work, we've experienced that in a lot of cases. So 10 principles for improving communications is really what this is fundamentally about. Those who know me probably know this, expected this slide first and foremost, and I really believe this, and I think we all struggle with it sometimes, but honesty and integrity is the most important thing in our business. There just isn't anything that's more important, and nothing that can hurt you more than sort of going off the ledge and not following this principle, okay? You will at some point be in a position where really the only thing you can offer somebody is your word. And having them trust you because of those repeated, those positive interactions, those times when you said you were wrong will mean a great deal, okay? So your communication with people and how you carry yourself is just paramount. And I know this is kind of obvious, but I think we lose sight of that a little bit when we have a lot of access or if I do this, I won't have to do a root cause analysis, or those kinds of things that sort of hit home in your day-to-day life. So, and the other thing I think with security people is we tend to be very black and white, and frankly, we're pretty confident that we're right. And I think it's important for us to remember that trust is built over time. It's not something that's just there or right. So I got some suggestions there. The biggest one I will tell you that I think matters the most is admit when you're wrong. If you can look for an opportunity to admit when you're wrong, that builds trust more than anything. So don't be afraid to do that. So that was the most sort of sanctimonious slide here, but we'll keep it going. All right, this is a fun one. The 6 P's of life. And a hat tip to Mr. Hawkins in the background. But the 6 P's of life apply to communications as well as life. And they are: proper planning prevents piss poor performance. As said by Antonio's granddad to him many times. Many times, right? But I really believe this. I don't think we think about communicating. Okay, how many of us fire off an email, or how many of us don't prepare for that meeting, or those kinds of interactions? You need to plan your communications, and you need to think about what you're doing. Now, I'm not saying you sit there at your desk for hours and agonize over that email. I'm not talking about that. But I am saying give it some thought and have a plan of how you're going to attack a certain issue. And we'll get into a little bit about what I think will help in that regard. So the third one is to embrace change management, and the stuff on the board here is all from a book. This isn't my idea. It's a great book that I read called "Switch: How to Change Things When Change is Hard." It's by the Heath brothers. They've written several kind of management-ish books. But if you're going to make that change in your organization, and if you're going to improve your communications and your plan for developing that security posture, you've really got to embrace this concept of change management. And I don't mean change management in the sense that many of you are used to, which is we stand up in the room and we go rah, 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 everything's great, and we hand out little trinkets, and people go away happy. This book really delves into what actually needs to happen for an organization to make a shift. Okay, and fundamentally, they talk about how you need to really focus on 3 categories. And they say that people have essentially a rational side, okay? A side of them that is, analytical. It can deal with a plan. It can reason. And you can generally get them with those kinds of communications or activities. The second part is the emotional side of people, right? So how do you get them actually vested in what you're doing? And they give examples of would walk into a meeting and throw a whole pile of widgets on the table, or what we've done to some people who they'll give us grief about why we don't use the NIST framework, right? And we'll print it off and we'll plop it on the desk and say, well, that's why, because it can't even read it, let alone implement it. You need to get that kind of emotion out of people as well as that rational side. And then finally, you've got to make the environment conducive to change. So if you're trying to make this change, you've got to figure out where the roadblocks are and where you can remove them. Whether it's you, whether it's someone who can help you, what can you do to remove those barriers? So this is another slide that they give. This is kind of a handout from the book. And so what they call it is direct the rider is the rational side of things, motivate the elephant is the emotional side, and then shape the path is the environmental variables that come into play. So when you're thinking about your comms, if you can think about these 3 things and maybe target your discussions, your emails, your meetings to try to meet each of these 3 objectives with people, you can get a lot further and be a lot more successful, is kind of the point. It's a great book. If you're interested in this topic, I recommend it. It's pretty easy to read, and they have some pretty good examples. So if you're stuck in a rut trying to figure out how to move that mountain of change, this is a good one. All right. Fourth is knowing your audience and preparing, and this This is really critical. You've got to think about who your audience is and, frankly, what they need from you or what they're looking for, and then tailor your message. I know this sounds simple, but I think it's something we don't do enough of as individuals, and something we really need to think about. So, got some ideas of what you can evaluate your audience on. Certainly, you can come up with your own, but technical knowledge is a big one for us. You've got to understand if the audience can spell TCP/IP or not, and what you can do about that. And for us as technical people who love that stuff, how to stay out of those messages and other things. Just, are these people in agreement with you? Do they even like you? Do they think you're the, worst thing that ever happened to the company? Or are they aligned with your mission and you don't have to do a lot of convincing? Spend some time thinking about those things and go into those discussions with a strategy. Another big one. Does anybody in the room know more than you do about the topic? Right? It's easy to present when somebody doesn't know, or no one in the room knows as much, right? But if you might get called out by 2 or 3 people in the room, it's important to know that. Okay, so a couple suggestions you can do here is, and this is a big one I like to think about a lot, is speaking in their terms, not your own. So you need to adjust your style to meet the needs of your audience. That's hard. It's not something easy to do, but try to do that. Anticipate their questions and write them down. This is something I've gotten a little bit better at. I still wish I would do it more, but a lot of mentors to me, when I'm doing something like going in front of the board, well, look at your presentation. What do you think they're going to ask you about? And usually you can pick up those questions. And then, hey, why not even include them in the deck so they don't ask them to begin with, right? Some people would say you throw a few out there that they're going to ask you, so you got a few softballs. But I think it's better to try to get them in the deck. There's nothing better than when you're at those kind of levels of having very few or minimal questions. And then give them the why. Don't just make a rule or a policy. Try to have an answer for explaining why this thing is in effect, okay? Why do we have an 8-character password, or why do we have a patch policy? Those kinds of mundane things. It's easy to say those are the rules, but you're gonna lose people if you can't explain it. All right, this is a graphic that I've been messing with. Probably needs a little work, but concept here is adapt your style as you move up and down the chain. Ooh, boy, wrong button. If I can get my pointer to work. There we go. You can almost not see it. Wow, that's awesome. Green. All right, so here's the point. As you move up these things, okay, you need to dramatically decrease the level of detail. This is a mistake I see a lot. Okay, if you're in a design meeting with your engineer friends, you can talk all the detail in the world. As soon as you start going up the chain of command, you've got to do less of that. Okay, give them a lot less detail, because they don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's not that they don't care, but they don't know. So don't even sort of bother. You gotta ramp up the confidence and the accuracy. When you get up to executive levels of management, or even sometimes middle management, they see weakness that's blood in the water. They're like sharks. They don't know a dang thing about what you're talking about, but if you show weakness, they will ask you 1,000 questions. Now you got to be accurate, so you can't BS them, right? But I mean, it's one of the more important things in dealing with situations where you're presenting something, but people don't really know the topic area. You gotta show them the confidence and be very crisp and accurate. Your length of dialogue has got to be reduced as well. It's very similar to the level of detail, but there is nothing wrong with answering a question yes or no. Okay, sort of like going through customs. I tell people, right? I'm Canadian, so I get a different sort of treatment when we come back. I'm trying to break into the country or something. I tell my kids, nothing but yes or no, right? No jokes. Same thing here. It's okay to just say yes. I swear people can't, it's impossible for them to literally just answer a yes or no question. So as you move up the chain, try to do that more. The other thing is analogies and graphs are big. We joke around about pretty charts and graphs for leadership, but analogies are big, and you really should have a collection of analogies for your security talk, because again, they don't know what you're talking about. So if you can give them some perspective, something they can relate to in either their business or how they work at home, how they've understood their career in the past, that's a big deal. So change that communication style, and really, again, you got to think about it and prepare. Okay, I'm going to be talking to C-level, so I better remove the tech talk and be a little more concise and those kinds of things. So think about how you can prepare and do that. But this is a big deal, and probably something that will, if you aspire to get to higher levels in your chain of command today, is really important. Yes, sir.
So with this, where would you put the fact that as you go higher and higher through those levels, you have to justify cost versus benefit?
Yeah. Are you saying which is more important?
No. I mean, how would you pick that in this?
It's interesting.
Because when I'm talking to the peers, and we're talking about bids, flights,
Yeah.
but they take it to Antonio, you'd be like, okay, show me what we're going to say. Then
Right.
When I talk to you, it's more and more about the numbers as compared to the actual technology.
You're right. Because at the end of the day, leadership should trust you that you're technically accurate before, right? I should trust that you're going to be technically sound before you get to my desk. And at the end of the day, budget and numbers is a big deal for me. So I think the scrutiny goes up to a certain point, but then I actually think it drops off. Okay? Because if at my level I have a certain budget, at my boss's level that budget gets a lot bigger. When you get to the C level and the board level of a $6 billion company like we are here, or $10 billion, whatever it is today, our numbers are tiny. Literally, in the scope of things. So it depends on your situation, Kit, but I think it goes up and then actually decreases. It's less about the dollars and cents. It's more about, is it the right decision? Is there something more important? Those kinds of things. How much are we reducing the risk? Those kinds of discussions. So that answer your...
Yeah, that was terrible.
No, it's a good question. It might be something I want to think about adding. I like it. Any others before I move on?
Could you
Yes,
answer
sir.
that same question, but with less dialogue and less mentality?
I love it. But what chain of command are we at, right?
I need a graph.
All right, well, since we're trolling. A picture is worth 1,000 words, or I don't know, whatever.
You do a cat picture once and forever your life is...
Yes, this was the proverbial cat picture for Kyle. But I do mean this, and I do this sometimes too. I can write really lengthy emails, but if you can represent something visually, you're probably going to make a bigger mark with your audience. And I'm going to show you 3 samples of what we've done here. The data is fake, so don't think that I'm giving you our scores on a security framework. But the things that you can do visually versus verbally allow you to get your audience at a much different level and, frankly, with a lot less technical knowledge. So the examples we've got here, we use the SANS Top 20 framework at Consumers to measure our program, to talk about investments, to see where we're at. We've gone on a several-year kind of journey with this. And one of the coolest things we ever did, which I can't take credit for, it was a marketing person in our communications team, was we created this bubble chart that basically shows. And then when I come back with my proposal that says, hey, if you give me this, I can get here in a year, and I can get here in 2 years. And you just kind of go back and forth. They want, right? But if you look at this visually, I've gotten so much mileage out of this, just clicking these slides back and forth, right? It's amazing what it can do for you. And this is really, really, it's kind of morphed for us, but I can't say enough. Find a way to measure your program, especially if you're trying to make a bigger change. Get some validation that it's the right thing, and just tell people where you stand. This was highly controversial for us. There were people who had been telling folks that we were green as green can be before this, right? So there was a lot of pushback on this. But it really had an impact and really got us kind of where we needed to be from a funding standpoint, at least. So visual, pictures. Stuff takes a lot of time. This thing's still even a pain to edit, but it's good to do and can help you out a lot. So I'm going to share a couple other pictures at the end that are more metric stuff, but we'll get into that. So try to spend some time and do some of that work. 7, I think this is actually a really big one. It's something people don't think about, but collect personality intel. Okay, and what I mean by that is we're all different people. You got to figure out what makes somebody tick and what's the right time to go ask them something, give them bad news. When do you want to have the meeting for your proposal? How are you going to do that? Even in your peer group, you know how people tick. You know what makes them tick. You guys know me. If you're scheduling an 8 o'clock meeting with me, fail. Or a lunch meeting, right? Those are like my 2 hot buttons. I'm going to be half dead at 8 o'clock in the morning if I'm there. So, you gotta think about those things. And there's more than just that, right? This one's a big one. Does the person like to win or do they like to survive? You know those managers, right? They're all competitive and they want to go and they want to be green. I might resemble that a little bit. And then there's those people who are just like, I just got to make it to retirement. Push the risk off and, we'll make it through. And, another year, I made it. That matters, right? And you can influence their decision a ton by doing that. Now, you find these things and I say you exploit them, right? But do it in a ethical, genuine way. You got to walk the line a little bit, but you got to use these things to your advantage. Even foods and snacks, right? If somebody likes chocolate and you got chocolate, it can't hurt, right? What do they want? We used to joke, I'll tell a story about a colleague of mine back here that we worked together for years. We used to be in separate groups. This was at a different life. And he came into my office one day and he goes, sat down, shuts the door, and he goes, why the heck can you walk into our boss's office and get something and my boss cannot do it to save his life, right? What is the deal? And all that it was about personality intel. Because our director at the time, all he wanted from you was to come in and take a stand and stick to it. Just say, I want to do this, and this is why I want to do it, versus what my colleague was coming in and being all risk averse and trying to get him to make a decision, the director to make a decision. He never would. And he never got anything, right? And I'd walk in and be like, I need this, and this. Okay, go ahead. Good, you're done. And kept my colleague in the back, you just drive him crazy. So just think about those things as you're working the system. Ego's another big one. Somebody's got an ego and you need to play to it a little bit, go for it. So personality intel can help you a lot and something to think about. The other one is really, this is a big one I think in comms and in a lot of different things, but just iterate, make progress, do something. And the point about iteration is don't go for that big bang. Especially if you're trying to make big organizational change, it will probably fail, and it will probably fail big. I've just seen that over and over and over again, especially in a security program. Security posture is people are very resistant to what you're trying to do. So, I really, really push for trying not to do a big bang. And this is especially true for controversial items, and I'll talk about a scenario that I've gone through in the past, but. How do you plant the seed, kind of water it, you help it grow, and then eventually you go for the harvest, right? You try to actually get something out of that. And I really believe for big decisions, things like headcount, things like budget items, you've got to make small, steady progress over time. If you walk in and you just show up with that PowerPoint that asks for 5 new people, it's probably not going to happen because people aren't ready for that. Now, if you mention 2 months before that, hey, you were at a conference and you talked to some people in your industry, and boy, this security team has 10 more people than you, and I noticed they had some systems analysts and they had some testers in their team. You plant the seed, right? A few weeks later, you come back, maybe you've got some more data, share it a little more formally, and just kind of, I'm thinking about this, and maybe come with a proposal. Again, keep working that, and then eventually you do come with that proposal. I think that can have a significant impact on your journey. I may be in the middle of this journey right now, by the way, so might be a good story. So iterate. I think anything you can do to make those small wins, and really my message here too is just do something. Don't spin. Don't get caught up in the minutia of what's going on. Try to make a little bit of progress, and if you keep doing that, you'll make a lot of progress. So number 9, we're getting near to the 10th. Data wins nearly every time. In today's business world, data-driven decisions, right? Benchmarking, KPIs, all this fancy talk. But it does matter, especially if you get to the higher levels, especially when you're talking, again, about something that people don't know what you're talking about. So if you can find ways to measure it, you'll be in a lot better place. Benchmarking is something we've started to do a lot more of. I've done some of this in the past and had some good success with some of the references we've got here. I can't spell either. I spelled Gartner wrong. I guess maybe I'll get credit for that. But yes, I am asking you to actually look at Gartner. It's okay. They're not completely evil. But use some of these sources to give yourself a clue as to where you stand with your industry. A good one that they produce, frankly, is percentage of IT budget that is spent on security. If you don't know that metric and you don't know what you're spending in your company, that's something you really should have. I've used that one with a lot of success. We're doing a ton of benchmarking now, and the utility space is kind of nice because we don't have this directly competitive thing going on with other companies, so we can share a lot more information, and we're doing actually a lot of benchmarking that I think is going to benefit our program. And really just find the data anywhere. Sometimes it's a little, sort of breach their kind of fiduciary responsibilities. So if you can show them in a reasonable way that maybe you are behind, you've got a great chance for winning. And then metrics and KPIs. This is really the new, and it's not all that new, but you're seeing security teams under this kind of pressure to produce metrics and KPIs for either executive consumption, potentially the board. We've got some interesting stories there, but if you're tired of things like your operations team, never following best practices or never patching or things like that, hypothetically, of course, create a dashboard. Visualize it. Show what's really going on. I've got some examples of that coming up. One of the things we've done really successfully with that 20 controls chart is shown what progress we'll make on a maturity curve by doing XYZ investment. If you can, even just showing that maturity curve value to investment will get you a long way, because most of the time people are coming without that information, and it will help your leadership feel better about spending that money. It's not the be-all and end-all, but I think those two things can get you a long way. And then finally, build relationships. I more and more when I do this work, I find that my job's about relationships, and really security is at the end of the day about it. And this is probably something we don't think enough about and should think about more. But especially if you're going to change things or improve things, you've got to have people supporting you. And really, I think each individual person in their role, I don't care if you're a forensics person or if you're a vulnerability person, if you're in SOX compliance, or if you're a leader, you should sit down and think about who are the most important relationships for you to be successful. And I mean generally outside of your teams, but really think about that and work to make those relationships as strong as you can. look, there's situations where you just can't, and you got to kind of grin and bear it. But maybe you can improve that just a little bit, and it'll make that journey that much better. So I got some examples just of relationships that you should have, and some examples of what we've had some success with here. One of the neat ones that's the second one down, our CSOC folks, and this is Brandon Wright's kind of idea. It sort of happened. It happened without being planned, but it was kind of neat. We ended up at one time with essentially a representative who used to be in the server team, a representative who used to be in the network team, a person who used to be with the desktop team, all on our CSOC. And that was huge for us because we had an embedded relationship into those teams. They happened to like the people too, which always helped, right? They weren't castaways that said, good riddance, we'll never talk to you again. But those things matter, and they make a big difference in your team when you're trying to get something done. I talk about DTE. We talk to those folks here at Consumers on all levels. I know we've got a person here from their technical team. I talk to their leadership a lot. It's a good deal. And then, of course, things like MySec, different community organizations. Anything you can do to build those relationships is a big deal. But I am generally talking about outside of your security world, outside of your security realm. The people I've got listed up there help me all the time and it really makes a big deal to have those. All right, so we did the 10 principles. Going to do just a little case study. Call it a case study. I don't know if it really is, but on vulnerability management and patch management, and talk you through kind of what situation and then what can be done, to kind of improve it using those communication skills that we talked about today. So, current state: security team provides regular vulnerability reports. Little or no progress seems to be occurring. I mean, none of you ever struggle with that, right? Operations think security's tools are broken, those evil scanners, or break things. And security thinks operations is lazy or incompetent, hypothetically. So what communication skills could you use to address this issue? Could ask the question, but I'll just go through what I have. Let's speak in their terms. So this is one of the things I've pushed a lot. We need to not talk about vulnerabilities. We need to talk about patches. Because they don't care about vulnerabilities. They care about if they're going to do something about it, what are they going to have to do? And it's apply patches. So talk in terms of patches. Build those relationships. We talked about a situation we had in our CSOC where a person who was kind of driving the patching process actually used to be an intern in the server team. That was pretty advantageous. She could make a lot more progress than many of us could have over many years. If we're talking about the change management side, the rational side, write a policy, help operations develop a process, try to get those standard practices in place. And then pictures, data, and the emotional side, and this kind of combines all three of those. This is fake data, so don't freak out too much. Thank you, Simeon, for producing some fake data. So this is something we're actually working on, and if I show this graph, if this graph was this bad to the director of IT operations, what do you think he's going to do?
High five you.
He might cry, right? He might throw something at me. He'll probably be pounding on his laptop. How terrible is this? How can we do this, right? I'm hitting that emotional side, right? Whereas the folks doing this work, it may not hit them as bad. I would hope it would. But this is really hits home. And this first one is basically server patch compliance. So what percentage of servers are incompliant with policy? Same with workstations. And then this is sort of a graph depicting how many patches are needed. So those yellows and oranges, again, fake data, I promise, is pretty highlighted. So you don't have to know anything about patching, right? You could have a CIO that's completely from the business who has no technical knowledge. They'll understand that, and it'll get an emotional response. And I'll tell you in a year how much better we are because of these things. And I'll say this: we're literally getting ready to publish a dashboard for some of our operational teams that's gonna, we hope, have a much better impact and give them a lot better data so they can see that improvement and make that improvement over time. Because sending them a vulnerability report out of your favorite scanner that's 63 pages long, if they're lucky, right? You're not doing what you need to do for them. So that's what I have. Questions?
So you're saying all these techniques work on you?
A lot of them, yes.
Arnold Palmer.
Arnold Palmer would be good. Yeah, you say that out loud, yeah? A few of you, I've worked with a few of you longer than others. But it's true, it does. There's no question. And it frankly, these things can work on just about anybody if you think about it and you plan things out appropriately.
Snickers work on Keith.
Yeah, they sure as heck don't work on me.
Snickers with an EpiPen.
Yeah, Snickers with an EpiPen. Thanks.
And plenty of volunteers to stab you with the pen.
Right. Got no shortage of those.
Whose turn is it this week?
Kip.
How do you get teams to care about their security posture? For example, if I'm a server admin, my applications are running along perfectly. Why should I care about my security patches, which may break my application? How do you get that built into that process?
So the answer is I don't know if you can, to be honest with you. I think you can in pockets, right? You can motivate people in pockets to do the right thing. Maybe you had that crazy breach that, you can help with. I think you can win with individuals. I don't know how much you can win just across the board. Now, what I would advocate for is if you do, and this is something I always have, is I know in each organization who are the technical people that are kind of interested in security. You want to leverage them as much as you can. Maybe become your champion and then they can help bring along people. But I certainly don't believe in the iron fist kind of approach. That won't work. But at the end of the day, they're frankly a little more concerned with keeping their systems running with minimal effort, right? And I think you can try to educate them. You can try to make some progress. But I don't know if your end goal should be to win them all over. I just think you reach diminishing returns at some point. That's not a great, it's kind of a doomsday attitude a little bit. I think, but again, I think you can find those pockets. Now, what I think this does though is if you do some of the things we've mentioned, and if you make your metrics visible, if you get buy-in from leadership, then it just becomes part of that work that they have to do. They may not be saying, wow, this security work is great now, but at least you've woven it into their day-to-day operations. Does that make sense?
So what you're saying, less words is threaten them with metrics.
I mean, there's a component to that. And there is. I think it's two things. It's for some people it'll be threatened. For others, it'll just be they don't want to lose. They don't want to be red.
Yeah.
So the peer pressure. One of the coolest things our CIO did is he gave all of our executives a report on their organization and what their phishing click rate was. All of a sudden they got all competitive and they start caring about our phishing tests. It was a brilliant move, right? So you're right. I mean,
I said it that way because I think a lot of people view it that way, that metrics are, you're setting them up for failure. But that's just perception.
It is, but I think too as a security team, you have to make sure that that's not your intent. Right? One of the things we've talked about is, yeah, we want you at 100% compliance, but is that really realistic over the next 6, 8, 12 months? So let's set a number that is realistic. Let's agree to it together. And then if they fail, the key is that you can't hammer on them. I mean, if you're trying to get people fired for missing a metric or get them dinged in their performance evaluation, that's I just don't believe in that. And I think once they feel comfortable that you're not going to do that, then you're really starting to make a little bit of progress. I get where it can feel that way, though. And to some extent, you're turning the screws a little bit. There's no doubt. Anything else? Brad.
Quick question. Can you run back to the
You bet. You bet. And by the way, these slides are I can share them. So.
This is something I get hammered on all the time, and it might be just worth addressing. What does red mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You want to talk about
flashbacks?
I am. So this was really good advice I got from some former colleague. We had a scale on each of these. Each of these is sub controls, and we had this kind of weighted scale that talked about, well, if we're kind of doing this, we'll give ourselves a 3. If it's fully doing it, we'll give ourselves a 5. And he's like, forget that. Binary. Are you doing it? Yes or no? It's okay. And then what we did was for each of these categories, there's a bunch of sub-controls, we just flipped the percentages and we just said 0 to 33% is red, 33 to 66 is yellow, and 67 and above is green. Completely sort of, it's just equal math. There's not some grand formula. And we would tell people that. So you can debate the measurement. There's no question. But my message to those folks was, we can debate the measurement, right? But if you guys can agree with this framework, and what this framework says is these are the things any company connected to the internet should be doing, then we need to do more, right? We also said to folks, don't expect us to be green on every category. There's some that we don't want to fund, or the risk isn't great enough. So it's okay. We don't have to be green on everything. But to answer your question, Brad, it was very split math, and we actually purposefully tried to take the subjectivity and the debate out of it. So when someone would come at me with that question, I would say it's just straight math, 1/3, and usually it would end. Usually the discussion would end.
My input would be that I found that the simpler the math, the better. The easier it is to defend.
Absolutely right.
So, yeah.
I think you're 100% right. And, our answer was hey, if you want to come up with a different formula, that's okay. But we're really not doing, the vast majority of these things. Anyone else?
So which tool for management do you think is more important, Excel or PowerPoint?
Ooh.
Not Visio.
Gosh, not Visio. I wish it was command line. Prezi, no. Well, depends how high, because if you get high enough, you have people doing your PowerPoints in Excel for you.
Oh, that's true.
I'm not there. Although this one did get created for me, which is cool. I actually think it's PowerPoint for my role. I mean, in all seriousness, because my role should be more about communicating. It should be more about evangelizing. It should be more about sharing. It should be less about the data stuff. So there's actually a serious answer to that, and that kills me, by the way. Those of you who know me, I'd love to be sitting in the sock all day hunting, but it is what it is.
So if I need to break bad news to you, I should put in a PowerPoint presentation?
No. That's actually a great question. You need to know when you got to go to presentation mode and when not to. Bad news, you go tell somebody as soon as you know the bad news, as directly and honestly and quickly as you can. No PowerPoint. Sorry, Matt.
I'm still coming with PowerPoint.
I once had a boss that made people do PowerPoints for their one-on-ones. Yeah, that was rough. So,
Is this why I'm leaving? Is that a suggestion?
that is not a suggestion. That is not a suggestion. And honestly, you guys, I really don't. I think PowerPoint has very questionable, if not limited value. But it kind of is the thing people are generally using to communicate. So, anything else? Yes, sir, Andy.
Combat the whole we're not a real target mentality.
Yeah.
We're just a utility injection.
Yep. So, and I've certainly heard that before. The question was, how do you combat we're not a target, right? And I don't mean target as in Target, the store, but a target for an adversary. I've certainly had that plenty in my career. I used to work in higher ed, so kind of the similar story. One, I think it's okay to respectfully disagree, number one. I think that you need to, though, you need to find some common ground on risk where you're saying to them, well, I respectfully disagree. Maybe give some examples if you have some from in your industry. The nice thing that's happened in the last 3 years is pretty much I don't hear that as much anymore because everybody's getting popped, right? What I do hear some of, though, is where does the cyber risk really lie when it comes to the entire corporation's risk sort of posture, okay? Cyber right now has the most attention. It has the most, it's got great coverage from the board. The media is just going crazy with things. So the bigger question I have is where does it fit? But to answer your question, how I would have done it in the past, it's really about showing and educating where some breaches have occurred, what was the impact, giving them visibility into the kind of stuff we do see. If you're not collecting all your incident data and sharing that at least annually, probably should be. Giving people visibility to what your team does. We've taken everybody through our SOC, from our board members down to all the C-level executives. We don't, we'd like to joke around, right? You put up the Norse attack map and they all go, ooh, right? We don't, you don't do that, but you show them some realistic numbers. And what I try to do is get them enough where they see that the local HVAC company got hacked, right? So it just doesn't matter. It is a challenge, though. In the utility space, it's a big challenge because everybody is threatening or worried about this massive attack that hasn't happened yet. So you don't have data points for that grid impacting attack. Hopefully we never will, but tough. So I hope I kind of answered your question. Did you have one, Don?
Yeah, do you ever worry about becoming a victim of your own success? You get good at these skills and suddenly you're not allowed in the SOC anymore?
I did have my admin access taken away on the sim. It was sad. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta. It's funny. You do in all seriousness, you do have to keep balance. I do a lot of marketing of our group, and you got to be careful that it doesn't become a game or a show. And you sure as heck don't want to fake these numbers, because, by the way, as soon as we did this for a couple of years, then they had the auditors come audit us, right? They had the internal audit group come and do a massive audit. So, and actually this is a great point, Don, is we got a lot of credit because we actually rated ourselves slightly lower than the auditor did, just slightly. And that was exactly where really our executives wanted us to be. But I think your point's well taken. And I know sometimes, even our team is like, oh boy, here we go promoting again. I get it. Or more likely, the IT folks are like, gosh, those cyber guys again. We had the DTE CIO come talk to us, and all he could talk about cyber. And we're like, yeah. And the rest of the IT is like, you guys suck. And then the DTE guys are like, can we get some funding? So, trying to help you out, Chris. What else? All right. Thank you all for coming. Again, want your feedback. Let me know. And I think we're probably all going to head somewhere afterwards. So. Thanks.
All right. So whoever wants to mingle, you can go ahead and mingle and do what you do. At some point, we'd like to try and do. I forgot your name. Sorry. Charlie. Sorry. Brought up a great idea. But after this, after the talk actually was done, that we should come together, maybe do like a little bit of networking with people. Sometimes we like to get off our own groups. We really don't get to mingle that much. The other option that'll be is probably some people will be moving over to one of the local restaurants. So if you've got a